Welcome to the Speed City F1 post-race show on ESPN Extra on SiriusXM with Jon Massengale, Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland live from the circuit. Speed City, America's voice of Formula One.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Bob Varsha. I'll step in for Jonathan Green, who is monkeying with his technology, which is sort of a pastime here at our little radio show. We're following up qualifying from the Austrian Grand Prix, round 11 of the Formula One season. And it's been pretty much same song, second verse. McLaren on pole in the form of Lando Norris, who came through with a brilliant lap when it was needed. And breakthroughs for several other teams, including Ferrari, who are right up there in the top five. Difficult ending to the session, as we'll talk about going forward. Pierre Gasly spun right at the end as the checkered flag was waving, and that compromised the laps of several drivers coming up behind him, including championship leader Oscar Piastri, who lost his DRS. It automatically goes away in the event of a yellow flag. And apparently that caught Piastri out, ruined his lap. And as a result, he will start in third place. So difficult, but not a situation that McLaren, given the strength of their car and their driver lineup, cannot deal with. Jonathan, we got you yet? Apparently not. So we'll move forward.
I can't hear anything, guys.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. Jon Massengale, normally our show host, will not be with us today. He had to attend to a personal matter, although we do hope to have Chris Medland, our man on the ground in Austria, with some behind-the-scenes tidbits and some interviews as we go forward. How you coming, Jonathan? Apparently not well. Well, let's start by running down the order of qualifying. Lando Norris, as I mentioned, on pole, trying to right the ship. He is 22 points behind his teammate Oscar Piastri for the championship lead. Charles Leclerc will start outside the front row. Piastri starts third alongside Lewis Hamilton and the other Ferrari. Ferrari has brought a new underfloor on the car that they were not happy with in free practice, but apparently it's come through for the drivers in qualifying, and they're up in the top four. George Russell, winner last time out in Canada, will start fifth, followed by Liam Lawson, who starts outside row three. Good run for the Kiwi in that Racing Bulls car. Max Verstappen starts no higher than seventh as things stand. And he'll have Gabriel Bortoleto, first time for the reigning Formula 2 champion to make the top 10 at a Grand Prix. So good job for him in the Kick Sauber. Kimi Antonelli starts ninth. Pierre Gasly, who wreaked so much havoc on the field at the end of qualifying, will start 10th. Behind them, Fernando Alonso 11th, Alex Albon 12th, Isaac Hadjar 13th, Franco Colapinto 14th, Oliver Behrman 15th, Lance Stroll 16th, Esteban Ocon 17th, Yuki Tsunoda knocked out in Q1 for Red Bull. He'll start 18th, followed by Carlos Sainz, who had a very difficult Williams qualifying session, and Nico Hülkenberg in a car updated just as Gabriel Bortoleto's was, starts stone last in 20th. Sainz's case was interesting in that Carlos had new brakes put on the car, which is a commonplace thing to do before qualifying, but they were apparently not adjusted quite right. The car kept pulling to the right. He couldn't deal with it, and so he is eliminated in Q1 for the third straight race as he continues a streak that he would very much like to have no part of in his glittering career thus far. How's it coming, Jonathan?
Hey, can you hear me now?
I can indeed.
There you go. I don't know where my camera's gone, but there you go. It's on.
I can see you too.
Okay. So you can see me.
Yep.
All good. All right. Yeah. I tell you what, Bob, sorry about the technical. But I have to say, you know, all the commentators have been saying it, and all the pundits have been saying it. And to be honest, the man himself has been saying it. He's let himself down at the worst time. He did it in Canada, obviously twice, once in qualifying and in obviously the race. But this was a great bounce back from Norris and worthy of what we've been looking for, which is this guy capable of stopping Verstappen and Piastri on a regular basis? And today he did just that. Missed practice one and has never looked back since. That was a sublime lap.
Yeah, it was brought out by Karun Shanduk on one of the TV feeds that, as you say, no practice time for Lando free practice one, as he gave up the car for their young coming superstar Alex Dunn of Ireland. But then he led free practice two, led free practice three. And Karun said at that point, okay, this is the moment of truth where Lando has let himself and the team down in the past. You have to get it all together and seal the deal with the pole that everybody assumes you're going to win. And that's exactly what he did. In fairly dominating fashion. He put a couple of tenths on everybody with his first push lap.
Yeah, no question about it. I can hear Chris in the background. Chris Medland, are you there?
I am here, bright and breezy. Johnny Green, how are we doing?
Oh, if I was any better, it would hurt. We had a few technical gremlins. John's popped off, but we've got you, and that's all that matters.
Very kind. Yes, good to be back with you guys. It's lovely, warm, sunny afternoon here in Spielberg in Austria. It's coming up to 6 p.m. actually. So qualifying is always late in the day, isn't it? These days, when you're at the track, at least. I know not for you guys in the US, but I think that you maybe just done Lando a bit of a disservice there with some of that. Quite a margin, over half a second on the shortest lap of the season. Now, I know we didn't get Oscar's actual lap time, did we? We didn't get to see what he could have done on his second run, but still, this was one where he did the thing that we haven't seen Norris do anywhere near enough this season, and it was have a clean and quick first run in Q3. And he put the pressure on everyone else to go and find a bit more lap time, and that gave him the freedom to then do that final lap. But he didn't actually need it, did he? The margin he had, the first lap would have been enough. But that second one came about because he wasn't under pressure. And too often in the past, he's put himself under pressure with his earlier run in Q3 and then not handled that pressure very well. So you can see how it snowballs the momentum. And this is a real sign of it.
Yeah, and Bortoletto is the obvious one for me. I mean, where has that come from? Is it just the fact that it's a tight track?
It's the track, it's the car. Like that is a very much improving Sauber. It's been better since an upgrade they brought in Spain, and we've seen that with back-to-back points for Nico Hülkenberg. But then adding to that, they brought another tweak here to the car that is another step that they believe it might have made. Hülkenberg was disappointed with his quality lap. I heard him say that he really felt that there was much more in the car and it has good race pace. So he felt he should have been further up and fighting for points again. But Bortoletto's always gone well here as well. If we talk about Lando going well around this track, Bortoletto won here in F2 last year as well. This is a place he feels very comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have to say, he's, I mean, Hadjar's been the sort of big jumper of the rookies so far, but Bortoletto is coming round 11, and I think we're going to see more of him.
Absolutely. He really has been performing well. He's just not normally had the car to show it. Something that's been strong enough for him to actually get eye-catching results. So when he's had a good weekend in the past, it's been, a 16th, 15th kind of finish. Now the car's been upgraded. He didn't quite get the results in the last two races, but he hit the ground running here and has been really, really strong. I'm actually hovering right now near the TV pen. I think he's still in there. He's one of the drivers I'm targeting and would like to have a word with if I can, because he must be delighted with his weekend's work so far. And it wasn't just sneaking through to Q3. He was fifth in Q2 and then stuck it on the fourth row.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Ferrari, what can we surmise from their day? It's been up and down all weekend. They've looked at times to be very, very, very fast, especially Leclerc.
Yeah, they really have. There's been some real flashes there. In fact, you mentioned Ferrari. I'm close enough to Ferrari that I'll see if Fred Vasseur's around. But they're another team with an upgrade, a new floor this weekend. And it was something that the drivers were actually downplaying ahead of the weekend. They didn't want to talk up their hopes too much with it. But Ferrari felt like they were always looking to unlock something with their car. That they were close as Lewis Hamilton scoots past me, having had his mandatory shower and change after his session. but it does mean I can see Fred Vasseur. There's a queue, but I'm going to go join it. Yeah, I think they've tried to play down expectations, and then it's actually meant they've been able to exceed them slightly with the way that they've gone about the weekend so far. But again, like best of the rest, but over half a second off Lando is a big gap. So it's kind of depends what your targets are, isn't it? And for Ferrari, best of the rest isn't enough. It's winning.
Chris, I got a question. Now that Verstappen has sort of been put off, if you like, by what happened with Gasly, where do you think he could have finished, and where now, in terms of strategy, will they change perhaps their approach to this, given that they know they're probably faster than where they're positioned?
Yeah, I don't think he's massively out of position, though, if I'm really honest, based on the first runs of Q3, but also some of his complaints about the car's handling. I think he was looking at P5. I think he's going to be behind the Ferraris and behind the McLarens. So he's 2 spots back, and he won't be delighted with that. One of those I don't think will give him the hardest of times, if I'm truly honest, because he's going to have Liam Lawson ahead of him. And, you know, Liam, great job today, get himself into Q3. But I do feel that that's probably not a driver that's going to ruffle too many feathers where Max is concerned. So he's essentially got 1 extra position to try and make up against George Russell. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm just trying to get myself in the queue here for Fred, who I think I'm a long way back in the queue, it looks like. So let's go and look for Gabriel Bortoleto again. Sorry, John, I'm just rambling, letting everyone know my inner thoughts.
Yeah, that's all right. Your inner thoughts are as good as anything we can come up with.
I was impressed by Lawson, Bob. Obviously, he needed that. We talk about, Lando needing to have a good Q3. Well, Lawson needed to get a Q3 and, more importantly, beat Hadjar, which he hasn't been doing.
Yep, absolutely. They are, I think, 2 of the, call them the rookie stars of the day with laps that they both needed. Not so much Bortoleto, perhaps, given the fact that the Kick Sauber is not regarded as a weapon on a par with all the other cars on the grid. But he did a great job with that. And Lawson, we all knew, had a good car because his teammate, Isaac Hadjar, has been doing great things with it. And you're right, Lawson definitely needed to step out of Hadjar's shadow and earn a high starting position on credit, on merit. And that's exactly what he did. So hopefully this is the start of a new Liam Lawson. We've seen throw some tantrums on track.
I'm going to interrupt you because I always have to. I've got Andrea Stella here, the McLaren team principal. And Andrea, we're going to walk across to my friends at F1 TV before you interview them or speak to them. But let's talk Lando. How special was that lap?
The lap itself was definitely special because it's remarkable lap time, let me say. Pretty dominant pole position. It's a bit of a shame that actually we were not in condition to see what Oscar was capable of because of the yellow flag. I think it would have definitely been quite close and interesting to see who was the fastest today. But in fairness to Lando has led pretty much every single session that has been in. He's been strong, very confident. And the speed has always been there. Like he was pole position in Monaco. When he touched the wall in Canada, he was pretty much in line for pole position. So we just needed to polish a few things and capitalize on this potential. So very proud of Lando for what he has done today. Very proud of the team overall for the upgrades that we took here as well, which seem to have worked well. And I'm sure Oscar tomorrow will try and recover the 1 or 2 positions that he was capable of today.
They're totally free to race again, aren't they? Even with what happened in Canada.
Absolutely. What happened in Canada is an incident that is just the result of a misjudgment from Lando's side in terms of the racing line, in terms of the closing speed. There was also a little issue happening on Oscar's car, which meant that the closing speed was actually higher than what Lando anticipated because there was a derating on the MGK going on Oscar's side. And Lando, has handled that so well, just raised his hand, took responsibility, apologized. And we overall as a team, we have processed this in a way that makes me extremely proud. I think we come up stronger, more united, and if anything, I think more ready to face the challenges ahead.
Well, we look forward to seeing those challenges tomorrow when you let them race on track.
I think it will be an interesting reminder of the season, so we all look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Andrea.
Thank you.
Sorry. Who won? Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. They are a team together at the moment. I mean, despite what despite what happened in Canada, which was kind of always going to happen at some point, they do sound like a team that is fighting as one.
Yeah, they're definitely in that superior car. It's going to be interesting if the Ferrari is everything in the race that it's shown itself to be in qualifying. Passing is difficult around this track, and it could lead to some interesting eventualities, one of which pops into my mind. It's kind of out of left field, but Chris, qualifying was delayed for 5 or 10 minutes because of what we were told was a serious crash in the Formula 2 race. Can I assume everybody is okay?
Yes, in fact, it was quite strange the way that played out. So the Formula 2 race had a fairly serious crash early on where it was relatively low speed, but one of the cars ended up upside down. It was at turn 3, and wheel-on-wheel contact, so it flipped and rolled over another car. Everyone was okay, but that took a while to clear up. So we had a long red flag delay just to remove all the cars and get the track ready again. Then they did a great job, actually. It ran right up to time. So there was, I think, 40 seconds left on the clock when they started the penultimate lap of the race, which meant they got onto the final lap of the race as well, got the whole race in. But right up to the very time limit that they had for the F2 race before qualifying. But then on the final lap, the car in fourth spun at turn 3 and 3 cars ran into it on the exit. Again, relatively low speed, but you've got 3 cars. So like one of them pushed up in the air, one of them underneath the other. Everyone okay, but awkward to recover them. So that took time again to clean up, and that's what delayed the start of Q1. So it was only a 5-minute delay in the end, but 5 minutes were enough. And then, of course, we got the extra delay with the track, the grass catching fire again in qualifying. So it just pushed everything back.
Which is why we won't get a full hour's time, I assume, here on the network.
Sadly not. I think we're into our final 20, aren't we? If we're at the top of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what's coming to my mind, boys. Again, we're talking about Bortoleto, we're talking about Lawson, we're talking about, Hadjar, and Alex Dunn this weekend, proving once again the depth of talent. Antonelli, obviously, as well. But, when you look at F2, as you just mentioned, you've got to start now looking at the likes of Dunn to be the next Behrman, et cetera, because, to get fourth quickest when when you've not been in the car, darned impressive.
Sorry, miles away. I was trying to set up Gabriel Bortoleto then. What was the question, Johnny?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I was talking about Bortoleto and all the guys that have come from F2. I'm really beginning to take much more notice in the talent that's there, because every now this year we're seeing the fruits of it. And I think Alex Dunn has proved he's just as comfortable as a Behrman and a Bortoleto coming into Formula One.
Yes, a very good point. And also then, if you look beyond what he did in FP1, which was very eye-catching and impressed a lot of people watching Formula One, you see what he did in F2 this weekend. He's been struggling a little bit because the car just doesn't seem to have been that suited to this track. And obviously he had the challenge yesterday of one practice session, jump out the car, go into the FP1 session, which meant he's missing out on time with his team in F2 ahead of qualifying. Then he's straight into qualifying. It's really tough on the F2 drivers to do that. And I think it's set him back a bit. But it means that people now look at those results and see how competitive that field is, rather than judge a driver on someone who might not be winning. They see the depth that's in that category. And it was something that Pepe Marti, the Red Bull young driver who won the sprint race today, said, was he's like, look at what Alex Dunn has done this weekend. You can see how strong it is, what we're competing against with each other. The level is just so high in Formula 2. So hopefully it does lead to more people looking at that and keeping an eye on those drivers and their talents. So, yeah, I think it's something that's just been a feather in the cap to the F2 guys.
Yeah, and just for the American audience alone, when you actually look at the championship coming into the halfway point, we've got skin in the game with Crawford, and there are any one of the top 6 can win, which is really unusual in F2, because usually you have a standout leader, and then the rest are playing catch up to finish in the runner-up spot. Antonelli wasn't a champion. Bortoleto was, but we've got a real 5-way, 6-way battle for the title this year.
Easily. And it could even open up even more, because no one's walking away with it at this stage. I think that's what's been very impressive in terms of, we can see that it's a very strong field, but sometimes you don't get the most exciting championship fight. Like, as you say, with that many drivers in there, but so many others that still will think, with such a long season, they only have about 14 rounds. there's every chance that many more of them can get in that mix.
Yeah, I hate to be Debbie Downer about this, but it's also going to add to the lineup of talented young drivers hoping for a seat in Formula One. I mean, look at the rookie crop we've got this year, and now those 5 or 6 guys in the mix for the F2 championship this year are going to want to move up next year. It's even with Cadillac coming on board, looks like those seats are going to go to veterans, and the rookies will have to bide their time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Karen Shandok over the weekend said, sort of told the world, hey, Cadillac, take a look at Dunn, because he is worthy of coming into the fold. And of course, it depends what Cadillac want. Do they want 2 experienced drivers, or do they want a paid driver and experienced driver, or do they want somebody they can invest in the future that has that sort of Antonelli feel about him, rough around the edges but fast, that they can develop with a Bottas or a Perez or whatever?
Yeah, Bottas is looking more and more like the guy who's going to get that seat. And I would hate to think that an organization like General Motors would take a young pay driver when they can really have the pick of what I just described as a tremendous crop of rookies, if in fact that's what they want, is a rookie rather than another veteran.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, go on social media and look for Bottas wandering around in a Colorado or some American ski town, and he spies a Cadillac and says, "Nice seat. Oh, look, there's 2."
I've managed to annoy Fred long enough to get him to talk to me today, but he's got a smile on his face because Fred, P2 and P4 for Ferrari in qualifying. I know the gap to Lando Norris is big, but this looked like a step forward from the team so far this weekend.
Yeah, I think it was a good Saturday that we struggled a little bit at the beginning of the weekend on Friday morning, but we had a good recovery, and the Saturdays went very well from FP3 to the first lap in quali today. We were able to put the 2 car in Q2 with 1 set, and then the same in Q2. It means that we arrive in Q3 with 2 sets and good laps on the board, and so that the execution from everybody went very well all the Saturday, and it's a good step forward.
I think your car was literally on fire today, because I think it was the reason that the track caught fire in Q2 there with your drivers touching the grass. But as you mentioned, you brought upgrades as well this weekend. Have they delivered at least what you were hoping from them?
Yeah, but it's not only this, because I think we did also in terms of execution a much better job than on some other event this year. And it's a combination. It's true that if you are a bit more performant in terms of potential, it's also easier to do a good job because you are more in control. And but I would say that overall, from the beginning of at least from Friday afternoon, everything went well.
Yeah, speaking of Friday afternoon, your race pace looked good yesterday. Do you think you can give McLaren a bit of a fight tomorrow?
This I don't know, and we'll see tomorrow. Every single race is different. Yesterday that we did long stint, but it was about 10 laps, not much more. That we'll have 70 to do tomorrow. It means that it's a different story, but overall that we always had a better pace on Sunday than Saturday, and this is encouraging for us.
We look forward to seeing how you go tomorrow. And I think I'm right in saying it's only 71 laps you have to worry about, because the centre line of the track is technically longer this year. So there's a stat for you.
Thank you.
There you go. I might be wrong, though, but I think I'm right. Thank you, Fred.
Good work. School them if you can, Chris. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. We've got more to wrap up of our qualifying show. Chris Medland on site, Bob Varsha, and myself, Jonathan Green. John is off today, but join us after this break where we wrap up qualifying. Sorry about that earlier, boys, but I don't know what went wrong.
No worries. I wasn't here for it. I just heard the end of it.
Hey, but Chris, just a bit of information more than anything else. I'm keeping an eye on Nikita Johnson. They've reached out to tell me that they were racing today, this weekend.
Yeah.
And their Sunday morning races in the morning. So they've agreed to either wait around and come on the post show.
Cool.
Pre-show, doesn't matter. Or record something, which I can do. Or if you feel like you can see them, go for it, because obviously it's a good story for America.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's it you've been dealing with there? Because I know Harry Soden, who's one of his managers.
No, I've just been dealing with his dad. They were at Toyota, so I've got a direct. They called me, when they were testing and telling me. They said, can you hold it till next week? And I said, yeah, well, Chris will be there and all the rest of it. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to be keeping an eye out on how the drivers do both in F3 and F2 tomorrow.
And Benavidez did good too, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He's starting second. He is a interesting talker, I can tell you that, from the press conference we had with him yesterday. So if he gets a podium, maybe we can grab him. It'll just be about, I don't know if he'll shoot off. There was someone else I was talking to, one of the trainers of Lawrence Van Hoopen, who races F3, saying about how he's quite often already like taking off before the F1 races started because of how early they're in for their races. And I think they do that here. So,
well, like I said, I've got a direct line to Nikita, so they will reach out to me at some point if nobody sees them. So, do what you do.
Cool. No, sounds good. I'm covering F2, obviously, so it'll just have to work the timing out. But yeah, absolutely.
All right, I think we're coming back.
Sweet.
Just maybe not right now.
Yeah. All in favor. Thank you.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back to Speed City, and yes, you just heard the words of Max Verstappen, who's had a pretty tough day at the office. He was going well, looking fast, but as Chris said just a moment ago, he didn't see fifth being anywhere. Well, he saw fifth as about where he should be. So even though there was a bit of disruption at the end there, and Max had to let off, he's probably where he needs to be for this Grand Prix. And we know his record here is four wins and I think a sprint race. So that's 5 in all. And he was reminding everybody in the press conference. So I did a bit of digging, and it is 4 official Grand Prix and 1 sprint race by my account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is.
Can you do it from there, though?
No. I'm going to get... It is 5 Grand Prix. It's because one of them was called the Styrian Grand Prix when we had 2 races here in COVID times.
Gotcha.
So it's 4 Austrian Grand Prix and 1 Styrian Grand Prix. But he won both the Styrian and the Austrian Grand Prix that we held on consecutive weekends, when this became almost like a second home. I got to isolate in a rubbish hotel room in Graz and not even come into the paddock for some of those races. But it was refreshing just to be able to travel again at that stage back in 2020.
Yeah. That must seem like a long time ago to Max Verstappen and the whole Red Bull operation.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a lot of water gone under the bridge.
Yeah.
A lot of Red Bull has been drunk since 2020.
Chris, is all this Verstappen to Mercedes talk, a mountain being made out of a molehill? Toto Wolff says it's very unlikely that Max Verstappen would join the Mercedes operation. And yet George Russell still doesn't have a contract. Do you have any insight into that situation? What's holding up a new deal for Georgie?
I do, actually, yeah. And it's not a mountain out of a molehill. It's more of a decent sized hump because George basically is waiting on Mercedes to engage properly, to sit down and agree a deal. Now, I've had from Mercedes sources that the tricky part there is, how do you value George Russell? Because right now, he only has, I think, what was that, his 4th victory in Formula One in Canada? 4 or 5 wins. He's not won any championships yet, but he's shown everything that would say he could maybe win a championship if he had the car. Mercedes haven't given him that so far. But next year they could. Next year there's every chance that Mercedes are a championship contending team under new regulations. So are you saying he's going to be someone who could be delivering you a world title? In which case, the wages, but also a lot of the add-ons and things are going to be very different. George beat Lewis Hamilton, who's obviously on a certain level of recompense. So then he's saying, look, I've shown I can do it against the best there's been. The talks could be a bit tricky on that front. But George is still waiting for those talks to happen. And what he did very smartly this weekend is he did change his tune from, I get it. I get why they're waiting. Why wouldn't you be interested in everyone, including Max Verstappen, blah, 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 to discussions are going on with Verstappen at the moment. And I understand why. But he publicly said, it was on a Sky Sports F1 interview, that Mercedes are talking to the Verstappens. And it meant Toto Wolff then had to, the next day, because he was in the team principal's press conference, face a load of questions about the fact that Mercedes could well be talking to Max Verstappen. And that was, I think, a little bit of smart media play from Russell, who was just getting a little bit fed up, I think, of not having any movement. So he's almost like flushing it out. He's saying, this is why. Everyone's now asking me, why don't you have a contract? And he says, I don't really know, to be honest. We haven't really talked too much yet. And as much as he says he's calm because there's a number of seats and potentially he thinks it could be him in one seat and Verstappen in another, I think he knows the reality is it's more likely that if Verstappen comes in, they'll back Antonelli as their young driver who's learning, and it would be Russell that would be replaced, and he'd have to go elsewhere and find a seat, either, it sounds like it, either Aston Martin or even potentially Alpine as a backup. And he doesn't really want to do either of those when Mercedes could be offering a championship. So I think it was a bit of pressure being put on Toto Wolff for once. And yeah, Wolff downplayed it all, but he also admitted that he's not flirting with Verstappen, but he says he's having conversations, which conversation sounds like you're working out, is there a future collaboration to be had? If it's for 26, then that'll move pretty quickly, and that would be Russell out of the seat. If it's for 27, then that will influence the offer that Russell gets and Antonelli potentially has in terms of break clauses. And is Russell going to be happy with that? Probably not, with the way he's performing. He's going to feel like he deserves to stay put. So I think there's actually a lot more behind it, because it's the first time we really heard Russell kind of push his own agenda a bit harder. It was a slight move away from kind of a more team cohesive line and more to, well, I'm ready. I don't know why they haven't offered me one yet, but they're talking to Max, so that might be the reason. And that gave Toto almost a bit of a headache, something else to deal with.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, who is his management?
So I feel terrible that I've forgotten the name of the management company, but Harry Soden is his main manager. Yep. Yep. And there is a company that he's part of. He's got a couple of business partners. They have a number of young drivers on their books. One such is USA's own Nikita Johnson, who's racing this weekend here in Formula 3. Mm-hmm. Logan Sargent was one of them as well. Jack Crawford is now one of them. So I'm going to suddenly blurt out the name mid-show before we go off air. So when you hear just a random outburst from me, you'll know that it's the name of the management company that look after George Russell.
And I'll tell you what, I was talking to the Johnsons about that management, and they were saying that it's great for them because Snodden is absolutely motivated by what happened with Sargent, and to make sure that that they feel that he is really motivated to get that American where he needs to be, which didn't happen with Sargent.
Yeah, absolutely. Same for Crawford as well. And the name did come to me, but I thought I wouldn't cut you off because you're not Bob and I only interrupt Bob. Infinity Sports Management.
But
Infinity.
That's right. Infinity.
Just let me start talking. It'll come to you. Of course, the backdrop to all this, and another card to play, I guess, in the discussion about driver lineup for next year is what kind of car are you going to have under the new rules in 2026? And I saw that Toto also took a lot of pointed questions about recent Mercedes mechanical failure, Mercedes engines, the power units failing. And Toto leapt to his company's defense saying, well, some of those were chassis problems. But in fact, some of the engines failed for Williams and for Kimi Antonelli in the factory team. And he made the point, or at least obliquely referenced the point, that so much of their resources are being devoted to the 2026 effort. Now, this is Mercedes right there in the hunt for second place in the Constructors' Championship. But he basically made it sound like, they're kind of looking beyond 2025 at this point, and that may explain some of the mechanical issues that Mercedes and some of its customer teams are having.
I think that'd be right, yeah. It really, I mean, we are now at that turning point where whether we like it or not, the world is shifting towards thinking of 2026. I think here in Silverstone next week will be the last upgrades we'll see of any major effect. I think that's my.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think there'll be a crowd in Bahrain for testing next year, to be sure.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the first test is going to take place in Spain. It'll be 5 days at the end of January, of which each team can run on 3 of the 5 days. So if they've got any issues that they're ironing out or whatever, it's up to them when they use their allocation. But as I understand it right now, they want to keep that as a closed test. And that will be tough to do because, one, we're nosy, but two, fans are too. And once you try and hide things away, then you don't get a full picture. And actually, I think stuff can come across much more negatively just because people don't have a full understanding. So I think that might change. And it'll be a big old crowd in Barcelona, which is also much more affordable, which I think would be... Well, Stefano Domenicardi's going the other way. Where are you off to, Stefano? A meeting, right? He's off to make some more money for Formula One.
Going to make another cameo in the movie.
Well, that's what I was going to ask him there, but I'll try that tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, I've just had it promised to us that we can get Gabriele Bortoleto pre-race on the pre-race show.
Oh, awesome.
Before he goes for some points from 8th, but he has just had to scoot. He's got one of those scooters down to his debrief because so many people have wanted to talk to him.
Has he scored points yet?
He has not. He's the only full-time driver on the grid yet to score this season. The two Alpine guys in Doohan and Colapinto have shared that seat. They haven't scored either, but I think it's unfair to judge them in quite the same way. So, it's only Bortoleto of the full-time drivers, which, if he does it tomorrow, that's a remarkably competitive season we're looking at, isn't it? Not even halfway through, if everyone scores. We used to have years where loads of drivers didn't score, even with points down to 10th.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, listen, we're getting towards the dizzy end of our qualifying show. My thanks to Bob Varsha and, of course, to Chris Medland. It's been a remarkable kind of day in many ways. Verstappen not getting the lap he wanted, but probably settling for where he is. But the big headline has to be that Lando Norris has bounced back from a hideous Canadian Grand Prix just a few weeks ago to put himself on pole by over half a second. He really is in the vein. He's led every session that he's been in pretty much. He missed session 1, and that always puts you on the back foot, or you think it might, but he is there. So we'll see you tomorrow for the Grand Prix of Austria.